Hello! I have just had the most marvelous day, and I haven't connected with you guys in a few because I have been hyper busy in the best, most lavish and fun way, just spending time with people that I love and having amazing client calls. But right now, what is on my mind is the science of synchronicity. So I just want to channel that through and pull it through for you guys. And there's so many different dimensions to this, but it's simple at the same time. So it's complex and it's simple. And I love the lights in here. Lots of beautiful light beings in this space has really activated. So a download that came through to me around this same time last year was the concept of something called synchronic creation. And I remember sharing it once or twice, and I don't know if the language was ready to make its entrance yet because it's a completely new word to me. And I'm sure if you're tuning into this, you get uploaded with completely new language constantly. So for example, one of the other fun words that was uploaded to me was cognosis. So co-gnosis, so collective knowing, collective realization. So all these fun words. So synchronic creation was one that came through to me. So I looked up synchronic, and the word synchronous came through, which is very much related to synchronicity. And synchronicity is all about synchronization, about harmony, accord, and agreement. So how do we shift into a space of profound harmony, accord, and agreement that enables us to engineer and architect miracles and synchronicities in our own life? Because when those things happen, it can really feel like it's coming from, beyond, but it really is the expanded dimensions of being, of our self, interacting and engaging with us. So it's on some level, and at some point in time, we made a specific request. And when we synchronize to the grand flow, it's really when that request can land in our reality. So synchronicity means to be in accord, harmony, or agreement with. And one of the ways that we can come into absolute accord with creation is by focusing on the soul light within ourselves and all beings, and staying aligned to that light, the light of our soul, of our truth, from moment to moment to moment. And this is the power and the beauty of living in flow, is because it's so fluid and flexible and pliable and malleable and constantly changing. So one of the greatest skills that we can adapt, particularly in the time frame, in the modern world that we live in, is the ability to be resilient to change, in joy and happiness. It's almost like a sport. It really is its own kind of marvelous sport. And the ability to co-create and design our reality, because our world is going to see, and our systems are going to see, more change, exponential change than, all the past centuries combined. And that's just the nature of change and expansion. It's constantly accelerating and constantly speeding up. And so it's almost like, if you can imagine being on we'll use like a yoga ball or an exercise ball as an example. This is what it's like to really live in a super conscious flow state, is to be on that ball, dancing in between moments. So gliding, sliding smoothly from moment to moment, seamlessly, trusting ourselves, trusting our intuition, trusting our guidance to action it, and staying in that pristine flow of lucidity and clarity. And one of the ways that we can do that and maintain what I would call super abundant alignment to pure flow, and we all know that feeling when we're in that flow. It's just so pristine, so clear, unencumbered. It is us with no filters, and we feel absolutely connected to streams of information, of data, of light, of language that just comes so easily and effortlessly and naturally, and from the most expanded octaves of dimensions of creation and consciousness. So it's really expanded truth. It's all yes. It's all the verbiage of source, I would say. And so a way to stay connected into this flow is to cultivate that space within ourselves. So to cultivate the light of soul, of truth, of our essence, which is, there's so many ways that we can refer to this. One of the ways that I like to refer to it is genius, or we can look at it as genius, source, truth, soul, nirvana, paradise. It is the aspect of us that is shifted completely into abundance and into presence, and into yes. So what we're hearing when we're filtering, we're literally distilling the consciousness of nirvana itself and the sensations of nirvana is the source perspective. What would source say? So from a scientific perspective, we could look at this as pure positive energy flow. So it's when all of our energy has shifted out of any type of a negative charge. So not negative and positive is good and bad, but a negative charge, which means it's draining of our energy, into a positive charge, which is the source perspective, which says, yes, you can, yes, you do have everything that you desire now, currently in the present moment. Is not something that is separate from you. You are perfect, you are whole, you are complete, you are worthy. It is not even questionable whether or not that is the case. You are held and embraced and cherished in absolute unconditional love. And unconditional means there's not a story around the love that is given to you. It means that it is profusely supplied in an unending stream of infinite abundance. So we align to that fabric of infinite universal abundance and allow it to pour into us and pour through us and ignite us and activate us into absolute and total remembrance of who and what we are as that source, then we can then begin connecting into that soul light and other beings. So this is where a super conscious flow state comes in, because we've cultivated that space within us. So we're clear on what the voice of source is. And this is an interesting space when it comes to collective paradigms, cultural paradigms, programs, stories, things that are coded viscerally in our cells, in our DNA, in our genetics, our epigenetics, that we have come into this reality with from our lineage, our heritage, things, programs, thoughts, feelings, words, emotions, tones, sounds, frequencies, colors, codes, all of this that we have brought in from previous experiences, and learning to artistically and meticulously filter and source. We're sourcing source energy, sourcing nirvana, and to learn how to filter all of the other codes and programs out with ease and grace and compassion, with an understanding that all of those other codes and programs, we call it the unconscious or the shadow, all these things that we refer to it as, but it's just energy that has not yet fully remembered itself in its most expanded natural essence. And so we can identify those things and start to filter them out with compassion and ease, because you start to recognize that within ourselves and within other beings, those are just dimensions of consciousness that haven't fully allowed the light, the light of source in. So we can start to receive light in those places within our own being, and then start to connect to that and amplify that and enhance that in all other beings. And in a pristine superconscious, hyperconscious flow state, we are simultaneously connected to that truth within ourselves and within all life. And an easy way to perceive this, or a way to unify the energy with ease and grace, is respect. So if we are respecting and loving and cherishing and celebrating ourselves, and the same with all life, and not just all sentient life, our beloveds, the people in our life that we love, our friends, our family, our communities, but also with tangible physical objects, because it's all energy and consciousness. And when we start to connect with care and with love and with respect and with celebration and appreciation for all the dimensions of our own being and all of the dimensions of beingness itself, and we practice that, then we start to unify all the energies in truth, in superabundance, in pure positive energy flow, in light, in synchrony, and we can live in that flow. So anything that we invoke from that space of synchrony, or even when we're out of that synchrony, anything that we invoke which will come into being when we align to that synchrony again, we can we just become profoundly powerful creators in that space, because we're living in a space of what I call yes magic. It's just, and Nick referred to this on our podcast episode, he calls it the yes life. And because that's what Source says, yes, yes, you can, yes, you have, yes, you are perfect, whole, lovable. It's just pure encouragement is all it is. It's like, I think if Source were a leader, Source would be a cheerleader, because that is the only voice that is filtered through in that space. It's just pure embrace and celebration and constant reminders of the perfection that we are, as we release and let go of all the other voices in our own being and in the external world that are not in alignment to that. And as we master that, I mean, we truly master that inside of ourselves. Anything that's going on out here that's not that, we can lovingly just release with absolute detachment, because we have a deeper understanding and a compassion for what's going on there. And everybody is well-meaning and well-intentioned. I know we've all heard this a million times, but I'll say it again. If it's either love, or it is a desire or a call for love. And behaviors that don't align to love is just an energy that is seeking love and doesn't know how to find it, and will go about finding and experiencing it in whatever way it knows how, or that it feels compelled to get or receive that love. So just to simplify, it's either love, or it's still finding its alignment to love and desiring to experience that love. And a huge part of us living in that synchrony is cultivating that space. It's such a cultivation to really just filter through the perfection that we are. And, you know, I posted a post earlier. I said yesterday, self-authorize in every moment, and your reality will authorize you. And so I want to go a little bit even deeper into that and say, you're already being constantly authorized by reality, by Source, by the expanded dimensions of you. And you can call it your higher self, your expanded self, the collective self-actualized we, the collective genius. But you're constantly being affirmed and celebrated and authorized by that energy already. It's just a matter of, will you let that authorization into your own heart, your own soul, your own life, your own psyche and psychology, and all the dimensions of you. And the more that you do that, the more you cultivate that space of just connection to pure Source, to you, to your expanded you, your higher self, the more natural that becomes. And everything that isn't that, you can literally just start to, okay, that's a program that's coming through either in my own mind or from my reality, and I'm just going to choose to not choose it in this moment. But I'm glad that I'm aware that it's there. So now I can choose anew. And so it's about choosing anew in every moment until we're fully synchronized and harmonized to that flow. And this is a practice, and this is mastery. I mean, this is where the real mastery is at, and where the real magic is at. And, you know, I was having, I had just a connection call with one of my clients the other day. It was great. We were just basically having a slumber party together, and it was a 3-hour conversation just about the nature of energy and consciousness and reality and all of this. And we were talking about oh man, where was I going with that? Hold on, you've got to go. Okay, help me, plug me back into the flow. Mastery, consciousness. Yes. Okay. Thank you for bearing with me for a moment there. But we were talking about when your magic gets to a space, or your you're just your creator capacity and your alignment. You enter into such a space of synchrony and lucidity that things start happening for you. So this is the space of what we would call miracles, serendipity, synchronicity, surprises, magic. Although there is a method to the magic, there's actually a pristine and precise sacred geometrical and mathematical pattern to which this is all occurring. And when you're hyper synchronized, you can see it, which is the gift of like just keeping our intuition and our vision open and trusting what we're experiencing and what we're seeing. yeah, and really allowing ourselves to ground that in fully, because we're all source. We all have access to this coding exists in each and every single one of us. It is the holographic blueprint that is contained in our DNA, which we might call the Akashic record, but it's beyond this dimension. It's literal. It's the data for infinity, which is just almost even, it's challenging to conceive how we would be able to even hold or compute that much data, but we can because we are that. But it's that space of just absolute synchrony where all dimensions of the self. So you imagine yourself as a multi-dimensional being, which means you're the sovereign self, which is, this individuated aspect and dimension of you. And then imagine that going out in layers, like a hologram. And so so imagine it like a disco ball. It's layer within layer within layer, and it's all reflective. And there's all these different dimensions of geometry. So like we would see squares, what might be a seed of life, a flower of life, and so on and so forth. And it just keeps expanding into itself, both infinitely in and infinitely out. And so when we're synchronized to the truth of soul, to pure positive energy flow, to absolute source, to our brilliance, our perfection, our unconditional love, our maximum joy and happiness in all of this, and we're synchronized to that element, that essence of ourself and all the expanded dimensions of ourself at the same time, that is when we're in that space of epic manifestation. I mean, we're talking rapid, accelerated, on point, physicalized, light manifestations of our desires in our reality. So a key to this is staying resilient in flow, committing to seeing through the eyes of source, hearing with the ears of source, creating via the perfection of source, but via the perception of source, which is you can have, do, and create, and be who and what exactly you desire. And the creation journey, because it's what we're on here, is a creation journey, is infinite and ever expansive. And so to allow yourself to, I call it flourishing forward, because it's, if we're looking in a linear frame, the flourishing forward is one of the ways to rapidly release old programs, because when they come up, you can just consciously select to let them go in that moment. Go, oh, okay, I recognize that may not be in alignment with my most expanded self, perfection. And so I can just let that go, and I can move into a new moment and choose new and fresh in this moment to align myself to truth. And you just continue to choose flourishing and abundance moving forward. And so that's why I use that terminology. And that's the way that I see it, is it's almost like a galaxy. It's like orbiting through time and space. It's like the planets are moving, and there's, that circle of energy moving around it, but it's constantly moving forward. And that's how we're evolving, is we're accelerating and we're expanding, and you're just constantly releasing and letting go of everything back here, moving into the new, moving into the new, moving into the new. And there's a place and space of just allowing it to be that simple. And the more that you allow yourself to stay lucid and conscious and present in the moment, the more you can become aware of when you're not aligned. You just don't feel good because you're not feeling the beauty and the perfection of all that you are. And so you can just choose to let those things go, and the processing time gets shorter and swifter. You can let go and move on with ease and grace the more that you practice this. And up front, it might take a little while, and that's absolutely okay. If you need to go and meditate for 15 minutes to just clear yourself and get back into that alignment, then that's great. If you need to do some lion's breaths, like to reset your neural pathways, whatever you need to do, go for a jog or a run to just shift and move the energy and come back into that alignment, then allow yourself to do that so that you can. But this is about being resilient to source and knowing that you can choose that synchrony, that agreement with this self and all that is in every moment. And so you can choose oneness. You can choose, I'm going to be at one with myself and at one with my environment, my body, my relationships, my fill in the blank, in any moment. And you can just allow that to occur and arise within you naturally and practice it. And I know personally for me, that space of peace is really glorious in my reality, but I'm in a space of expansion in my own journey where now it is moving into celebration. So it's beyond just that kind of neutralized space. And it's like, sometimes I refer to it as extreme source, but going into celebration of like, just going to choose to celebrate this right now. I'm going to choose to celebrate me. And that really helps to shift the energy. So celebration is a huge word. Always helps me find my alignment. Superabundance helps me find my alignment. So I think of in every moment, or do we realize that the fabric of abundance is infinite and unending, and there is an infinite supply. There's no limit to it whatsoever. It's just constantly more beauty, more flourishing, more life, more prosperity, more love. All of that is available to us constantly. And looking at the journey that we are on as a creation journey. So I was just sharing this story with somebody, and and I was talking about having a remembrance of being the void of creation. So remembering just being potential, just being the field of infinite potential, untapped energy. So it's like the dreamscape. We might call it, like the primordial void, or the womb, or Shiva, or potentiality, stillness, beingness. It's just where everything is dark and silent. It's where we've all had this experience. I just happened to, I was just channeling through my remembrance of it. But being that void and awakening to myself. So if you can imagine, it's like before you go to sleep at night and your eyes are closed, right? And you can't see anything, but you're still aware. You're aware that you're spatially aware of yourself, or that you are still there in some way. And that's kind of that is how consciousness awoke to itself. It was in that space of absolute stillness and absolute darkness and silence. And it just suddenly became aware that it was something, but it couldn't see anything because it was pitch black beingness, and nothing had been created yet, perceived yet, conceived yet. And so the initial, and this is so wild. I'm just going to finish up this story and I'm going to hop off and hope that you all picked up the nuggets and gems that you needed from this. But it was so wild because the first feeling, because as infinite creation, I could feel how vast and epically massive I was. And the first feeling was fear because it was dark and I couldn't see what I was. And the initial fear was, one, not knowing what I was, and not knowing what I would see or what I would find if I could see what I was. And so the first awareness that came through that space was, I am. And then the next question that arose with a bit of anxiety was, and so the only reason I'm drawing attention to this is because this is where all of our fear and anxiety comes from, the fear of the unknown and all of this. And then the next question was, what am I? And out of that question, that desire to know what we were, light, sound, frequency, vibration, music, form started to birth itself and vibrate into place. And then the next feeling that came immediately after that fear, and don't you know, if you've ever massively upgraded any area of your life, when you've had to take that leap and you've had to just go for it, and there's that initial feeling of like nervousness until you get used to it and you know that it's safe to jump, and then it becomes fun and exciting to jump. But then it shifted to excitement instantly, because then it was like, I'm a creator. I can create anything that I want. What do I want to create next? So consciousness realized that consciousness was creative, and that was exciting. That was exciting. And that's the magic of it, is that we've got these gorgeous internal psychic technologies, the technologies of mind and body and sensory perception and feeling and projection that we can utilize to actually create our reality. And the more advanced and mastered we become at this, skilled, I will say, because we all contain this. I mean, it's who we naturally are. We're just remembering it and mastering it again. The more fun it becomes, because everything does start to manifest as if by magic, because it's so accelerated, the rate at which things crystallize and materialize in the physical dimension from the point of consciousness or cognosis, conception, to the actualization just is so speedy, and which makes the whole thing delightful, because it's like being on this joyous roller coaster of life, and there's just always freshness and novelty to dance in and play with, while savoring the beauty and the novelty of the moment that we're in. So it's all happening simultaneously. So it went from, the fear of, wow, what am I, to, oh wow, my consciousness creates. This is absolutely marvelous and remarkable and incredible, and I want to continue doing this. And so consciousness began to individuate itself into an infinite amount of forms and expressions, so that it could look at itself, so that it could observe itself, explore itself, experience itself, and create from multiple infinite vantage points, to have as many novel, magical experiences as possible. And so it's just a creation journey, really, that we're on. And it's just always, what do I want to experience next? What do I want to dance into next? What do I want to explore next? And that journey is unending, and just on one more note, and this is where that profound, when we really truly know who we are and we remember, it just is where that respect and that love and that care and that celebration for all life comes in, because it's all us. It literally is all one. It's just one us that started to individuate itself. And so we recognize that we're always interacting with another element or dimension of ourselves. And if if you're listening to this, you've had a major exquisite drop-in with another soul, where you're sitting there and you're connecting and you're gazing eye to eye, and you literally start to merge with that being and experience yourself as one consciousness. And those beautiful, profound, psychedelic, interconnected moments of just ecstasy, where you're experiencing yourself through another being. And that is something that's possible to happen all the time, at all times, if we're really connected into the sentience of everything around us as living, breathing, pliable, movable consciousness. Because if you take a microscope to anything, whether it's our body, and you see universe within universe within universe, you see cells and organisms and atoms and photons and neutrons and electrons and bacteria and all of these things. So we've got this whole, multidimensional universe within our own body. So imagine that on a grand scale. We are an organism within an organism within an organism within an organism. And all of that energy is in constant motion. And so even if you take a microscope to a physical object, you're going to see the same thing. You're going to see particles and atoms and energy that's constantly moving. And our minds, our emotions, our states have the capacity to change and shift and mold that matter from our interaction and our engagement with it, which is one of the most valuable things about co-creation is relationship, because it's our relationship. It's all about relationship, really. It's all about our relationship to ourselves, to life, to the physical things in our lives, and I'm going to start talking about money more. I'm not going to go too much into it in this video, because one of my intentions is to support shifting the consciousness around how we interact with money and with value, and how that ties into how we value ourselves and how we value life, and in just our relationship with money itself. A fabulous etheric energy at this point, because it's certainly not backed by gold, and I mean, most of our transactions are virtual. So I really love to play in the energy of that and help people shift their paradigms around it. But it's all, everything that we manifest or don't manifest in our lives is contingent upon the relationship that we have with it. Is it one of value and appreciation and excitement? And if we can allow it to be that, then we'll experience more of that thing or that experience, that actual experience in our reality. So yeah, synchrony, synchronic creation, simultaneity, being at one with all that is in the moment, laser lucid clear, yes, alignment to pure source, alignment to superabundance, alignment to possibility, alignment to flourishing, alignment to love and celebration, and the beauty in that, the magic in that, the support that we have in that, knowing that we are just beyond like 1,000 trillion% supported by universal intelligence, our collective genius, source in every single moment, and loved, and to allow ourselves to receive that so much that it becomes embedded and encoded in our cells, and that we resonate that through every single cell of our body and align and embody the truth and the nature and the essence of who and what we are. And so we can thrive in that flow, being at one with, in harmony with, in accord with, in agreement with ourselves and all life, and live in the stream of miracles, magic, synchronicity, serendipity, and just absolute happiness, living and thriving in the game of life. So I love you. Thank you for hanging out with me. And just, yeah, just creating such an exquisite space for me to be all of me in my wild flow states that I get into with you guys. And I really hope that you are able to receive exactly what you needed from this video. And I love you guys. I'm celebrating you. And yeah, I'm just going to go do a beautiful activation and get some rest and wake up tomorrow and have a miraculous, fabulous day. So I love you guys, and I will connect with you soon. Mwah.